Good morning. First of all, I would like to thank the World Social Forum organizers for giving me the opportunity to be part of this panel discussion. And secondly, please accept my apology for not being able to be there in person. Let's start with the World Social Forum main slogan. Another word is needed, and together it is possible. Yes, by saying this, we mean to resist the political and economic order in context of historical capitalism. It means we want to change the world to a just world. We want to create conditions for abolition of slavery in all its manifestations and the establishment of a truly human society based on equality, justice, freedom, and with no discrimination, no inequality, no exploitation, no child labor, no poverty, no environmental destruction, and so on. Basically, we want to change the current status quo. To do this, we must fight against class oppression and discrimination in all its forms. We need to make sure that we don't forget about half of the world population. I mean, the woman. We should not forget that capitalism works will definitely affect women's life around the world. Middle Eastern women are not exempt. Plus, there are many factors that we need to consider when focusing on the region. The economic crisis, wars, proxy wars, and the bloody competition between capitalist states have pushed back the world by decades and have poisonous effects in the Middle East, where imperial powers continue to plunder natural and human resources to fill the pockets of transnational corporations. With the rise of ISIS, the instability in the region has more far-reaching dimensions. The current situation in the Middle East, that is the most important arena of political Islam, is the fruit of the confluence of two reactionary processes. The establishment of the new world order centered on the hegemony of US imperialism and the internal developments in the region that, in the absence of revolutionary forces and movements, are influenced by political Islam. After the end of Cold War, Middle East had an important place in extending US hegemony to Asia. More than 60% of world's oil and gas reserves are located in this area with the highest Muslim population in the world. So the region should be a bridge for influence in Asia that was far from the area of US hegemony. Wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, the threat of war against Iran, the war in Syria, the kind of support of the various Islamic groups, and even the US-led coalition against ISIS must be understood in this context. And since the life is miserable and intolerable for the majority of the population, there is a desire for a change in the entire system. And of course, women in the region are reflecting this desire in the best way. Women in the Middle East are facing challenges not only due to the discrimination and gender-based structure of this system and the gender-based society, but also because there are theocratic sexual apartheid regimes in power, legitimizing all gender-based discriminations. Middle East is a region in which in addition to the combination of militarism, profit-seeking, despotism, and experiencing invasion for several years, misogyny, the theories of hatred of women, prejudice against women, and demeaning toward women as a group is being practiced by governmental institutions to legitimize the women are less deserving than men. If we look deeply on Iran, we will see that a capitalist regime relying on despotism and Islamism as an ideology is waging war on women. And soon after the revolution in 1979, Iranian women came to discover the gap between the reality before them and the expectations that had prompted them to take an active role in the course of the revolution. They also realized the challenge that this gap was to pose before them by a system of sexual apartheid that officially pushed for entire separation of men and women in all aspects of life. With the coming to the power of Islamic regime in Iran and with Islamization of state and other institutions, we began to witness emergence of a political Islam. I'm talking about a contemporary political ideology that is seeking hegemony and a share of power, especially in the Middle East and North Africa. I'm talking about an ideology in which women are regarded as second-class citizens, and this is what we are experiencing in Iran. In fact, Islamic law in Iran considers women to be second-class citizens and promotes discrimination against them. It is noteworthy that the legal discrimination is being forced in a country that, while its women's share in the labor market is less than 1/5, the number of female graduates is over 60% of those being admitted to universities. There is no doubt that women of lower socio-economic status or women from religious and ethnic minority groups or homosexual women and transgender women groups suffer disproportionately from legal discrimination. I want you to just keep in mind that discrimination against women would promote unhealthy and unbalanced society and a negative relationship between men and women. As a result, have negative consequences on the lives of men as well. When barriers are created for women participation in economy and social aspects of life, the entire society will be prevented from advancement. Even if women's work situation in Iran determined by state ideology, women do not accept to remain at home behind the veil and do not have any activities outside. Regardless of their legal position, they are very active in social and political lives and trying to force the Islamic regime to open them these spaces. So, Iranian women have become an important force of our time. The history of Islamic regime has been filled with misogyny on one hand and an unrelenting struggle of women against Islamic Republic, especially by new generation who resist the regime and refuses to accept these rules. Even if many women in the movement have a growing understanding of women operation and imperative of collective solutions, unfortunately, women's movement in Iran is currently divided. In most places, it is broken into small groups which are hard to find, hard to join, and even sometimes hard to understand politically. Some are active within the establishment and trying to make reconciliation between Islamic teachings and women movements in order to justify the religion interference in women's life. I welcome reforms that will objectively improve women's lives, but we should focus on all forms of institutionalized system of operation based on the domination of men over women. I mean sexism that works within capitalism and within all kinds of religious teaching, and also because of women class position. It is said that the advancement of this society is shown by advancement of women's position. So, how can we talk about development in a country like Iran that religious laws and tradition prohibit the development of women in economic, social, and political spheres, and does not allow even those women who are called insider as and a part of the government system to progress. Iran is a country that an Islamization of its state and other institutions will be completed only by Islamization of all economic, social, and political position of women's lives. We need to keep in mind that in Iran, Islam is not a matter of individual choice, but a legal and political system that manipulates women's position by creating monolithic image of ideal Muslim woman. This is to reinforce paternalistic relations with regard to women and serves to maintain the status quo and to justify unequal gender relations within a theocratic political system. But despite strict ideological rules and structural limitation on women's work in the context of Sharia law and its teachings, women in Iran have shown a great deal of courage and commitment to struggle for their rights. They have challenged gender construction of work dictated by the patriarchal institutions such as the state, family, education, employment, parliament, media, and so on. So many women came to realize that the Islamic Republic with its Sharia law is the main and primary obstacle and barrier for any kind of improvement of women's situation in Iran and the development as a whole. Therefore, the phase of secularization and de-religionization of a state is the first step to start the improvement in gender equality in Iran. I have one more point to make before I finish. To me, the fight for universality of women's rights is an important cause. I can say in the past 2 decades, the political Islam was largely aided by the proponent of cultural relativism. The Western academia and journalists invented and nurtured the concept of cultural relativism so that on its basis they could justify compulsory hijab, stoning, maiming and torturing of women under the rule of Islam. That gave justification for turning one's head while one's government made deals with those Islamic states. By defending this racist concept, the Western academia, media and government, and even many social activists turned a blind eye to the atrocities completed by this misogynist and reactionary Islamic movements, not only in the so-called Muslim world, but also in Islamic communities in the West. Apparently, according to this concept, there are some rights that are suitable for Western women and not appropriate for women who are born in the other part of the world. While anti-war movement and anti-racism movement are rightly concerned about the current attacks against Muslims and Middle Eastern people and communities, but they fail to reject religious misogynists, and basically they are silent about patriarchy and misogyny in the other world. They are fostering political Islam. Therefore, this view not only never talks about what Palestinian women, Afghan women, or Iraqi women go through under their Islamic regimes, but also tries to push them to keep silent until Palestine, Iraq, or Afghanistan is free from occupation. Or this view never addressed the systematic government-backed harassment and violation against Egyptian women at the time of Morsi Muslim Brotherhood. In fact, coup d'etat, occupation, war, and even war threats became an excuse to legitimizing women's subordination in the region, while without the day-to-day struggles for outlawing of all forms of discrimination in entire society, workplace, and under these regimes, the women emancipation would be unthinkable. There are still many demands, like equal pay for equal value, for abortion and divorce rights, for the protection of women against male violence, against sexual harassment, rape and domestic violence, against honor killing and forced marriage, and for free high-quality childcare and so on. And women in the region deserve these rights. And Iranian women are not mere passive recipients of the effects of the social changes. They are rather active agents of the future social transformation within Iran. They are the most dynamic group in Iranian opposition politics. Thank you.